Is Medellin Colombia safe? The goal of this video will be to answer that question for you. Now, before you tell me that I'm saying Medellin wrong, hey, it's okay. If it's Medellin, whatever you want to call it, I would have said Medellin. That's how I would say it. But anyways, I've heard people in Colombia say Medellin, so I don't know how you want to call this city, but I want to answer the question for whether it is safe to go there based on my experience living there for 1 month. Now, I'm going to share my experience from where I stayed, and I'll let you know what I did in my time there, the locations I went to, so it's simply coming from my own life experience. Before I went to Medellin, I did a little bit of research, and I didn't find so many, let's say, favorable things written about going to Medellin. Now, there was lots of fear-infested information that I found, and I decided that I was just gonna go there, and just experience it for myself and see what it's like. So, I've been compelled to make this video to answer the question of whether Medellin is safe or not, because at the end of the day, it's like many people will put stuff on the internet without having ever experienced it. You might have government agencies saying certain things, saying don't go there, it's dangerous, it's this, it's that, when you go there and it's completely the opposite. So I want to share this with you based on my experience. So let's get to it. Is Medellin Colombia safe? I would say the short answer is yes. Now, I do want to share with you that, of course, in certain situations, if you put yourself in certain environments at certain times, you increase the likelihood or the probability, will increase of, let's say, negative things happening. So you have to use your common sense. It's very obvious. This does not just apply for going to Medellin, Colombia. This applies for going anywhere. That you simply, understand that whatever you associate yourself with, so the places you go to, the people you hang out, the activities you involve yourself in, it all either increases the probability of crime, violence, or it, reduces it. So it's really simple, okay? And Medellin, Colombia is a beautiful city. I'll share with you some amazing things about my experience in Medellin, Colombia. We're going to cover affordability. We're also going to cover police and military. We're also going to cover, well, guess what, some food. And we're going to cover the weather as well. And if anything else comes to mind, I'll share with you, some amazing things about the city. So let's get started. The first thing I want to share with you is I stayed the entire month in a neighborhood called Kelesens. Now, the mountains are incredible. So this Kelesens neighborhood, I was in this high-rise apartment building, and we'll touch on affordability in Medellin in just a bit, but I was in this high-rise apartment building on the 15th floor, on top of a hill already, and it had 360-degree views, not all 360-degree views from the apartment. I had multiple views from the apartment, and then I had balconies that would be in the hallways of this condo where we had 360-degree views of Medellin, and this was just insane. The views, I mean, incredible. The mountains, incredible. Those mountains are so massive. I've never seen mountains this massive in my entire life before, and so I was just like, I probably spent way too much time looking at the mountains because I was so amazed at how massive they were. I had never seen mountains like that. They made these skyscraper tall-like buildings look like nothing, like, mini. That's how incredible the mountains are. So from the Kelesens neighborhood, I would suggest if you want amazing views, there's multiple high-rise apartments in Kelesens neighborhood area that if you can rent there, I mean, you'll have stunning views of like 360 of the city. Now, can you get that in Lorelas or El Poblado? I'm sure, but I was not living in those locations. So I want to share with you where Kelesens was close to. I, don't know too much about Medellin because I was, the first time in Colombia, this was the first destination I went to. So I didn't maybe get out as much, because it took me some time to get a little bit comfortable. So when I was in Kelesens, in this neighborhood, I spent time in El Poblado, just a little bit, not like a ton of time. From my understanding, that's the most upscale place in Medellin, but I can't really say too much about it because, I didn't live there and I didn't spend more than, I think I was there twice. I did some sort of a tour that I purchased this tour through Airbnb, and we were cycling through the city. And this tour guide took us through there. So, I say took us, it was just me and the tour guide. Anyways, it was a fun experience. He took me to multiple places in El Poblado, different viewpoints. And again, I don't know the names of all of them because it was my first time there, and it took me some time to get comfortable to venture out. So because I only spent a month in Medellin, I don't know a ton about the city other than the Kelesens neighborhood. And then I spent quite a bit of time in Laureles. So Laureles was a 20-minute walk from the Kelesens neighborhood. And I would spend a decent amount of time in Laureles. And I'll share with you some of the kind of pros and cons of, let's say, Laureles, Kelesens neighborhood, because that's where I spend the most amount of time. So first off, the pros in Kelesens, I mean, just where I was, you can get incredible views of the city. You don't even have to rent high-rise apartments to get incredible views of the city, because there was quite a few, like within walking distance, parks, outdoor gyms, where you could literally be on top of a hill or even down kind of in a valley, but you had incredible views of the city. And obviously you don't have to pay for those views, they're completely free. So that was very incredible. I highly recommend Kelesens neighborhood. It just so happened that I rented an apartment there. I had no idea what this neighborhood was. And in terms of the people in that neighborhood, I mean, they were incredibly friendly. They were, you know, like very inviting, very, you know, communicative. If, you know, my Spanish is not that great, but when I did communicate with them, we managed to make it work. And overall, you know, nothing negative happened in my experience the entire time I was there. The gyms, there's quite a few outdoor gyms in this Kelesens neighborhood. So if you go, like, there's, you know, literally outdoor, legit outdoor gyms. You don't have to pay for them. You can use them. You know, the people working out, you know, my experience, super friendly. You know, we couldn't communicate because I speak English, they speak Spanish, but we would like laugh and do body weight stuff and, like, you know, communicate with body language, and it was a lot of fun. So, you know, in my experience, the neighborhood was very safe. People very friendly, and again, I had no negative experience whatsoever. Now, the one downside of the Kelesens neighborhood, at least at the time that I was there, is that many of the restaurants accept only cash. So, for example, if you wanted to, let's say, go to a restaurant, you know, obviously have to get cash. So if you don't have a problem with getting cash, you know, whatever, then it's not going to be an issue. But for myself, it's my first time in Colombia, so I, you know, stuck to mostly paying with my card. So it was only once I decided to go to an ATM and get cash, and it opened up being able to go to some smaller cafes and also being able to go to some restaurants here and there. But I didn't spend a ton of time or money going to restaurants because mostly I only had a card. So the majority of the time I would cook at home. I would just go to a grocery store that was very close, they accept card. I would pay with that and make my groceries in the apartment. That's the majority of the time what I did. For food, I did try a couple of apartments. I tried a couple of restaurants, and the food was delicious. I mean, I didn't try maybe, like, not that many. I tried maybe three or four at most different restaurants. So I didn't try a lot of the food in Medellin. And again, I kind of attribute it to my first time there. Anyways, that's kind of the Kelesens neighborhood. I want to quickly go over some of the kind of pros and cons of in my experience, of the Laureles neighborhood. And then we're going to go into police, military, and also we're going to cover other topics such as affordability and the weather. Okay, so when I was in the Laureles neighborhood, I went to Laureles multiple times because what I wanted to do was just get out of the apartment. And a couple times I tried to go find a place that I could work, you know, like a local cafe with Wi-Fi where I could work, you know, from my laptop or from my phone. I actually found it challenging to find cafes in Medellin in that area that had Wi-Fi. And so I don't know if I wasn't looking very well, but I really didn't find any cafe that had Wi-Fi. So that was a little bit disappointing. So what I did is I just literally did all my work out of the apartment. And what I would do is I would take multiple times, like 2 to 3 times a week, I would go to Laureles, and I would do that as part of getting outdoor activity in, getting some nature in. It was a nice walk, 20-minute walk. There's lots of parks along the way, lots of people being active, especially on Sundays. You know, people are really active actually in that city. And it's also like amazing kind of energy that I felt there. Now, what I would do when I got to Laureles is mostly I would just walk around the different neighborhoods. I would go to maybe a grocery store, buy a meal, eat there, and a couple times, like once or twice, I went to a restaurant in Laureles where they accept a card, and I was able to pay with my card there. So I tried some food there, it was great. But for the most part, you know, the only thing that I would say about Laureles is that it feels a little bit more, you have a mix of a lot of different, you know, scenarios, so you don't necessarily have very, very upscale. I would say Kelesens was more upscale, at least in the high-rise apartment area, was definitely more upscale than, you know, Laureles for the most part. Laureles kind of feels like a downtown, I don't know if you're familiar with downtown Vancouver in Canada, but it kind of felt like that to me. And, you know, I'm sure there's nice places there, but it's a little bit like, you know, I don't know that I would want to be, I'd say this, I felt safe, but I don't know that I'd, you know, spend tons of time out there by myself at night. That's kind of how I would describe it. And, you know, I want to be very clear. There's definitely neighborhoods that are much more impoverished, that are literally right within the Kelesens neighborhood where I was as well, and I would walk through them at times during the day. So, you know, I'm not saying that Laureles is an impoverished neighborhood, because it's not. It's not one of the impoverished ones. But it definitely felt like a little bit like not as clean, not as upscale, a little bit more. I feel like it's a place where lots of people go to party, and it's not the cleanest vibe that I got there. But good energy, and especially during the daytime, it's a wonderful area. I just, you know, I didn't go there at night, so I don't really know what it's like there. You know, I imagine it felt like kind of a party type place, and you know, it felt pretty safe. I would say it feels very safe, to be honest. Just like I said, I don't know that I would spend a ton of time by myself there in certain areas late at night. So that's the only thing I would say with that. And, you know, it could be maybe a little bit cleaner when, you know, for what I prefer. But anyways, beautiful other than that. Now, we'll touch on the weather just overall in Medellin. When I was there the entire month, I mean, the sunshine is actually quite a bit hotter than I thought it would be. So, for example, my nose burned, and it was usually throughout the midday, you would have maybe anywhere between 2 to 4, maybe 5 hours of sunshine. So if the sunshine was in the morning, it would kind of carry out through, you know, midday till maybe 4 in the afternoon. The weather never got incredibly hot, but it also never got cold at all. So it was kind of an in-between. People call it the city of eternal spring, maybe for that reason. I found the weather to be phenomenal. Sometimes throughout kind of like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, it would kind of peak in terms of the hottest. And again, the sun didn't feel as hot, but for some reason it burned my nose rather quickly. So I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, but I did notice that, but it didn't feel that hot to me. Now, it also rained a decent amount, but more than anything with the rain, it was on kind of, you know, we had kind of rainy days or chunks of time. So it would be like for 2 to 3, maybe max 4 or 5 days, it would rain and be kind of very foggy, you know, cloudy, and it's in a valley, so sometimes the clouds would feel like the clouds were very low. So I don't know if the clouds felt low or if I was high up in a building, but it felt like the clouds were quite low. And so when it would, you know, be kind of foggy and rainy, it did that for, like I said, 2, 3, max 4 or 5 days in a row, and then it would be nice again. So that was kind of my experience with the weather there, but at no point did it get cold, at no point did it get super hot, so you don't need any heating or any air conditioning, you know, when you're there. Now, we'll go over affordability and police and military. So let's do police and military first. I just want to give you my experience with that. So first off, I never had any issue with any police or military personnel when I was in Medellin. I will say that, you know, I felt going between Kelesens to Laureles, there was a decent heavy police. Like, I felt like they have, to be honest, I felt like they had quite a lot of police, like zipping around in their, like they have green motorbikes, so they zip around to like 2 of them usually on one. They never stopped me, never questioned me, nothing ever. I never had any problem with them. And military, there was a military base between Kelesens and Laureles. So when I would go for a walk, they had obviously a military base, lots of military-based stores, and a decent military presence. But I mean, again, nothing, like I never really saw them do anything, never got stopped by them. Sometimes you would see them, they set up in certain areas. I don't know what they're doing. And they would just, you know, be standing there, and you know, it can help you feel more safe in the country to see that there is a military and police presence. You know, because obviously if there's military and police, people will not, you know, do crimes as readily, you know, if they're in their presence. So, you know, again, I don't necessarily feel that the military or police in Colombia are corrupt. I felt very safe with them. What is it like very late at night? I don't know. I can't really give you the answer to that, because especially in Medellin, I really didn't go out at night. So, you know, that's kind of that. And the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up this video is affordability. I found Medellin to be fairly affordable. Bogota, in my experience, is more affordable than Medellin. And so with Medellin, it's, you know, the food is pretty cheap. The apartments for rent is typically the most in terms of what you're going to pay, whether you want to rent an apartment or a house. Rent in Medellin is definitely higher than in Bogota, maybe by 10 to 20%, at least in my experience. And overall, I would say Medellin feels like it's 10 to 15% more expensive compared to Bogota. Again, at least in my experience. I personally love Bogota, but I had a great time in Medellin. I do think that at some point I'm going to go spend more time living there, you know, explore and experience Medellin more, because I felt like I experienced maybe a fraction of the city in the month, especially, like I said, it was my first time, in Colombia, and I didn't know what I was walking into. I was kind of nervous, kind of like afraid, and so I got to my apartment, and I just ventured out only what I had to, and then as I got more comfortable, I started to venture out more and more. But the next thing you know, the month was over and I went somewhere else. So with that said, we're going to wrap up this video. I hope this video is helpful for you. The overall answer to is Medellin Colombia safe? I would say yes, 100%. There are things you have to be mindful of. As I said when we started this video, be aware of, if you're going out, let's say late at night, the areas you go to, where you put yourself, especially if you go by yourself, and the things you associate with, because at the end of the day, those are the things that will likely determine whether negative things will happen to you or not. So you can, for the most part, decrease the likelihood of those things occurring by taking extra measure and being cautious enough. And if you do go out with people you trust, if you have people there, and if you do go out by yourself, try to go to more upscale areas. And also, if you go out by yourself, let's say late at night, and you go to more upscale areas, be alert and be mindful of the situations you get yourself into. So with that being said, overall, I recommend going to Medellin for sure. Like 100%, you're going to have a great experience. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And with that being said, if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up. If you found value in it, it would be super helpful if you could do that. Make sure also you leave any thoughts or questions you have in the comments for me below, and I'll answer as quickly as I see them. And also subscribe to the channel so you never miss future videos that I produce for you. I'll share more videos with you based on my life experience, like travel videos and more. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And the last thing is, I have a few offers for you in the description of this video below. So if you head to the description below right now, you'll see multiple links. You can check out every single offer and get access to any one that you need and or want. Keep in mind that any offer that you get access to, I will get a percentage of it. So I do appreciate you for clicking any links and making any purchases, because through that way, you're also supporting me. So thank you so much. Again, I hope you found this video valuable. Make sure you subscribe, as I already said, and give this video a thumbs up. Comment any thoughts or questions you have for me in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you soon.